Alrighty. What's going on, macro perspective peeps? Gonna be Marcos and I talking some news. This is probably like a week old since we'll hear this, so there's probably more news on this, but CrossFit is for sale. Marcos, I think we want to talk about this because this is like probably the biggest thing in the health and wellness world right now, especially the last few days. Um, yeah, man, when did you hear about this for the first time? Did you hear about this the other day? I kind of just saw it on Instagram. I was like, what? What happened here?
Uh, I don't have a day in mind when I heard about it, but I do know that I think it popped across my feed probably that it was like potentially or looking for suitors, right? Not that
Mm-hmm.
it's officially, but I guess is this like the official it is for sale
Mm-hmm.
moment? Um, so, review a wide range of buyers is what it says, blah, 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 in the article that you sent me.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there's anything, whatever, but I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the brand itself, I feel like, has been dying for a while,
Yeah.
which sucks in a sense because it is near and dear to my heart. Um, but at the same time, I don't know, man. Like sometimes changing the helm and creating different cultures of things could be positive. I don't know if when they shifted from previous ownership to this current one, and I think it's
Yeah.
actually is it this is a different CEO than the CEO that I even thought of.
Well, the
Um,
CEO that was in after they bought it, like, stepped down after like 2 years, and then he came out, and then he'd been on for about 3 years, I believe. Let me find the name here.
yeah, it was Don Fowle replaced Rosa. It was Eric Rosa that happened in February of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I mean, obviously, here's the thing: ever changing times of any model, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
people become more and more credentialed, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think forcing the issue to some degree of like, hey, by the way, now you're an owner, you have to hold a level two,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know if there's any um, incentives, right, that they're pushing to people to make it like, again, it's a burden financially to be like, oh, I got another $1,200 to spend this year. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these people are operating on very slim margins, right?
Dude, the gym business is, bro, there barely is any margins, dude.
Yeah, you pay yourself maybe, right? You got people that are generally working for some sort of like kind of trade scenario to make it work, but then, the ones that do crush it if they do have some systems in place like a couple really good full-time coaches, right? And the model itself is just very difficult, right? And I think a lot of it was easier back after, I think the boom happened after the market kind of crashed and real estate was cheap. So, everybody kind of stepped in and got these amazing lease options and they were actually making some money. It became like a viable thing. It was everything popping up on every corner, right? You literally would be like on one corner, there's another gym on another because it was just
Yeah.
so easy to like get into it. And, ultimately that may have diluted it down because now you have so many people competing for the same like for the same like member. And then that member may have had a poor experience back then
Mm-hmm.
versus like where it's at now, where it's like there's probably the right amount of gyms, right? But like, like they didn't make it, they made it too easy for the barrier of entry for anybody and their mom to just be a coach and then open a gym.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I mean that's the thing though, is like if anybody can do it, when I remember when it was like a few hundred affiliations, then it just popped up, right? It was like fucking hockey, ooh, hockey stick effect. And yeah, CrossFit gyms were popping everywhere, but it was like not every CrossFit gym was the same. I mean, I've had my fair share of a few, and some of them are rinky dinky, man. Some of them, like, there isn't a front end to a back end client experience. And when I was managing gyms, dude, from the moment that someone got into the funnel, we wanted it to feel like we were there holding hands with you. To the moment that you ended with us, there was an exit interview, and everything was bolstered from the top down. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, like, the front desk greeted you right. The way you used the restroom was with, like, it smelled good in there. It was, all these little things. It was always
Mhm.
clean, deep cleaned every week, every month. Classes were quality checked all the time. Programming was looked at all the time. We didn't follow just the normal, like it just it was from front end to back end. It was great all the way, and it's just not that. It's for every for every gym. It's just not like that, you know.
Dude, 100%. It's uh, so as you're talking about that, like I need to know the numbers, right? Because
Yeah.
they kind of pointed this out, I think, on Morning Chalk Up, I think it was, right? I'll
Yes.
go to
Yeah.
that page next. Number of affiliates over the years here. Chat GPT for the win yet again.
Yes,
Oh 05, we
sir.
had 13 affiliates. Then you said like oh 08 was 800.
Hmm.
Then we have a 4x growth in 2 years, right? Where it's at 3,400. Then it doubles. Then it adds 3,000, right? So, my recollection of the gym was basically 2011, right? So it was kind of like that real big kind of like hyperbolic, or
Hmm.
sorry, exponential kind of growth era, right? Um, and those 2012 to 2016 numbers were strong, and it was like adding a couple thousand affiliates every year, and that's kind of as it was going global, right? So
Hmm.
I kind of
Hmm.
remember that. Feels like I'm just getting older every time we talk about things in the past. um, so it looks like the peak happened about 2019, and then the sale happened as a result of the controversy, quote unquote. And
Yeah.
in talking with other people, like again, reading text is tone deaf, right? So to say something that is documented with words versus like listening to the nuance of everything that may have actually needed to have been captured wasn't captured there. um
Yeah.
and so the insensitive nature of that, and my parents always told me whatever gets posted online eventually will get seen, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, so be careful about what you post and always be very like calculated about what you're putting out there for the world to see, and I just feel like it was, again, we're in this era where, you know, uh, I mean, Trump derangement syndrome was at an all-time high, right? It's even higher now. We're repeating that cycle a little bit, and it pays for me to be coming in the middle where it's like, well, we'll see how this, swings. And, I'm, we're non-biased on a lot of things, you and I,
Yeah.
right?
Very agnostic. Very agnostic. Very much something I learned the other day because I was dealing with folks in my clinical space, and they were very strong on their beliefs on a certain stance on plant and animal-based foods. And the only thing I could be, I had to answer it like I didn't go yes, but the answer was yes, and that totally is, a great choice, and we want to support you in that. I'm very agnostic when it comes to these things. I'm just here to support you in your endeavor, because when someone is on the intense side of something, I can't be confrontational, even though the evidence may suggest otherwise, because it's working for them. That's fine. It's cool.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, the transition from 2020, I
Yeah.
think
Well,
it,
question
it's.
though, question for you. With that thing, I know you can't disclose what it is.
Mhm.
How did you feel in that moment? Like what to be speaking kind of in absolutes versus like nuance? Because obviously we come on here, we talk a lot about the nuances. We had
Yeah.
our previous guest that will come on after this that talked about
Yeah.
kind of, again, I bring up the conversation about like politics, religion, and diet,
Yeah.
and he's like, no, religion and diet are one and the same, man. So that episode dropped a
In
couple
that
days.
in that moment, yeah, in that moment, I'm just had to be I had to take a pause in between my answers and just make sure that I was answering and honoring and showing both myself and the brand that I'm representing, right? To make sure that like, hey, whatever I answer is going to be scrutinized, so make sure you answer it as safely as possible that it so I, made my answer saying like, these are things we're very agnostic to and we're supporting all endeavors. We're just making sure that everything that we're doing is supporting you as best we can, right?
Yeah.
Um, it does feel hard. And sometimes they say things and I'm like, and sometimes people pull information from high authority figures, certain studies. I'm like, I'd love to look at that literature. I'm not against it, I'd love to. Please send me over that literature. I'd love to connect. And I think it helps because yes, but is always confrontational. Yes, and is always so helpful as a yeah. I'll just continue the conversation. We don't have to,
Yeah.
don't get
Yes,
into that.
but I think yes, but really helps you as a practitioner have more, again, you probably get a lot more, what's the word? You don't get as much recognition, but you'll
Hmm.
get more respect,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
feel like me and Dr. M talk about this all the time where, he's like, certain people are losing me. I'm losing respect for these people based on this, those stances that they're like saying with definitive yes answers, yes,
Hmm.
and right. Um, and would assume that there's nothing else to go look at and research, and yes, but we're doing this because, but this is subject to change, right? And when we
Hmm.
had our other, nutrigenomics person on, an epigenetic person that we talked to, like, even there, it's like, hey, like, yeah, these ones have gotten you know, um, a lot of media attention. And then she even went into like, think about like all the products you then sell as a result of looking at one isolated gene. And I was
It's
like,
iconicized. It's iconicized. And I think, I mean, bringing it back to like CrossFit and like how it's been iconicized, but the truth of the matter is, I mean, you probably put ChatGPT on this, right? They've had a decline in gym affiliates. Why? Due
yeah,
to the fees. Can you see how big those fees got, Marcos? Like what the fees were every year for
yeah.
being a CrossFit gym and just having that banner on?
All right, what do the fees look like over the years?
Yeah.
It hasn't changed much. I think it boosted a
So,
couple times recently and maybe the last 5. But I think like during the initial kind of like blow up phase, if you will, it was not too crazy. Um, Okay, so early ones were $500 to $1,000 per year for the
hmm.
affiliate dues. Then it gradually rose to about 2,000 from the early, 2010s. So we'll say like 2010 to maybe 2015. Mid 2010s to present, it's roughly 3 grand or so per year.
Mm.
Um, Older affiliates would continue. I mean, but this is normal though. Like this is normal
Yeah.
business. If you bring newer people on, it generally does cost a little bit more to
Service
you
that.
got to, yeah, they're trying to service it. They got to pay another person to deal with the archive and document it and double check things and make sure that the database is correct. And I mean,
Yeah.
the one thing that CrossFit really does exceptionally well is document data points. It
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like
Dude, they
there
got
are,
like what, thousands of millions of athletes of like athletic endeavors.
yeah, I mean, total participation of the open, which will be the next thing to look at, right? Would be, interesting. Um,
Yeah, pull that
But,
up.
let's see,
But it's cool. I mean, just bringing it back on the sale though, it's like, yeah, those numbers were declining, all that, obviously leadership issues and things like that. But one other thing from the games last year, obviously, we had that big incident, unfortunately, with the drowning. Um, to this day, still boggles my mind. And even people that were outside of CrossFit were talking to me about it because they're like, hey, I know you were into fitness, and they're talking about it, and they're like, we heard from the evidence that it was this, it was that. What happened? And I was like, I don't know. It's just, it's a crazy, crazy thing.
yeah, and I mean, also changes in the games that, the participation there changes a lot, and I think a lot of people became a little more disgruntled, and that leads to just changing of operations and stuff, and
Yeah.
look, like, as a true metabolic health improvement program, which is why Greg Glassman moved his business now to MetFix. He's like, I want to have high intensity workouts help fix people's metabolisms because that is in turn the cause of chronic disease. Like
Hmm.
everything generally stems from some sort of metabolic issue. And
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that stance. And I know you do as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can look at all the other horsemen, and metabolic syndrome is definitely the root cause, right? So he's
Yeah.
approaching that from a holistic lens, right? But the thing that helped the allure happen for maybe the younger generation was this idea of competing, right?
Yeah.
In competition in sport and gamifying anything makes anything so much more fun. No matter the
Dude.
age, like again, like they had different, yeah, every 5 years you can move into a new category and you're lumped into like a smaller sample size of people you can compete against versus,
Yeah, you're like doing this, like Masters, Legends. Yeah.
yeah, versus like 18 to 35, right? Or 18 to 34, right? And like that's a why. I mean, even in your 20s to
Dude,
your early 30s, there's a massive
it's a
difference. Yes, there
massive
are.
gap, bro.
Yeah, even though like I'm definitely stronger now in my early 30s than my early 20s to some degree, right? Like my mid 20s, I feel like I'm about the same. I have, maybe I can still hold up to that strength number, but other capacity things are down. Like,
Dude, I'm
it,
telling you right now, like when I was 18 wrestling college guys, 22 was different than 18, bro. Like they had 4 years of being in college level athletics compared to an 18-year-old coming in. You know what I'm saying? Like they were
yeah.
men. I was still a boy, you know?
And you could be just as strong as them, but they know leverage better. They know technique.
There's just
Yeah,
4 years of
like,
wisdom there, you know?
yeah, like 4 extra years of people at their, in their best. And so if we look at the open numbers again, which is not necessarily a direct correlation to the affiliate, but kind of, right?
Mm.
Um, maybe because like the affiliate want to participate, but now they all kind of house in-house competitions. Like, hey, let's take this money and give it back to our local community versus spend $20 into the corporation, right? Which then loses some of the data effect and sample size that I was talking about, right? But they know, right? And that's why this year the prize purse isn't as much as it was last year. I think that last year was the highest it was ever, and then
Mm.
this year it's down, right? Um, so you go from basically my first. That's crazy thing about like my first year doing the open. There was only like 70,000 people doing it.
Holy cow. How many is it now?
About a little over 300. No, this year I think it's like less than 300. It's like
Mm.
250 or whatever. Um,
I
but
mean, that's
like
like 3x, 4x numbers, man. Holy cow.
so basically where we're at now was circa when it was like at 2020 or 2015 is about the same as what it is 2025, right?
Mm.
And the competition landscape has changed quite significantly,
Yeah.
right? You had those teens years where um, you had that next phase, right? And when they got rid of that next phase that the average person from your gym could potentially go to, you're now losing a potential sign-ups of like, well, why am I going to be in a glorified spreadsheet? It's kind of what I'm doing. It's like, all right, cool. For all the people that are there, like, let's just call that a relative sample. If I'm in like the 90th or 95th percentile, and I didn't pay the money, I can still look at the data of people that are putting it in there. I'm like, all right, I'm cool with that, which is what I've done. And I haven't paid for
Yeah.
an open since Zeke has been born, which was about, again, where the open participation was actually the highest, which was 2018.
Wow.
So yeah,
But that was a pretty peak year.
it was. And, it still, it felt like I was missing out on a lot, personally, because it's like, oh man, like this phase is past me. Um,
Yeah.
and, but again, like that from again, like I get it. You're losing money across that, but you're losing other partnerships, that maybe help. Now we're kind of seeing the 5-year plan after that, what it kind of turned into, like less support from these smaller mom and pop type of like community based
Yeah.
what's the word, businesses, right?
Hmm.
It's almost detrimental. Like Caffeine and Kilos did a podcast where they talked about, which is arguably one of the biggest brands that kind of come out of CrossFit, that a lot of
Dude,
people knew
yeah.
it. um you know
Everybody wore the crops. All the girls were wearing the crops.
people would wear the stuff, right? They were more so like they wanted to be more like the lifting brand. Like there was like weightlifting, which was really cool. Like you knew like that shirt. It represented a part of the culture in a different way, right? So they talked about in the last however many years, basically probably since COVID, that when they went back to the competitions, no one was there at the sanctional or whatever the equivalent level is now. All right,
Hmm.
these sanctionals, like these events that are sanctioned by the or that CrossFit's not really putting on anymore, versus when it was regionals. And those the athletes there, like you're just going to a sporting event, you're going to just watch the pros. I love CrossFit. I fucking hate watching it in person, dude.
Dude, honestly, that was the same. That's what I felt. I felt
Yeah.
that, and that's what it felt like because it just was like, oh, I'm not part of this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not part of it. I remember, I think a coach said it once. He's like, yeah, there's CrossFit methodology coaching, and then there's the game. They're not the same thing. Like, like they just have the same name. They're not the same thing. There's not like a thing to connect the two. They're just other than the name.
Well, this goes back to my argument about like identifying sport
Hmm.
versus activity versus
Hobby
versus
versus
hobby
competition.
versus yeah, right. And like the semantics matter. Like, yeah, you're arguing semantics. It's like, yes, but our brains are wired a certain way. Like the Greeks had 4 different words for love, right? Or the Romans, or both. Well, I don't even know. Whichever one of the ancient cultures, right? There is, and we have one word that tries to represent, all these different emotions you feel. And it feels like
Yeah.
that term is sometimes not enough to say like, I love you. Like the
Yeah.
way that you love your kids is arguably a different love than you have for your wife or your spouse.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not that, and it feels similar, but it is two very different things. Like I can choose to love my wife, right? You can choose to love your fiance, right?
Yeah.
But that's a choice. It's a different type of love. Like your kids are your flesh and blood, and it's a love that I wouldn't describe it as the same word, even though we do use the same word in English.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, bringing it back to like the CrossFit, it just, yeah, I feel like there was a mark missing, and I really feel that this is where like other things are coming in to where the amateur feels like they're part of the pro,
The sport, yeah.
the sport, and it's. I think that's why people love marathons. That's why I feel like people like 5Ks because it's like the amateur runs with the pros. It's open
Why
season,
is High Rocks doing so friggin' well?
dude.
The
Because
amateur runs with the pros. You are
amateurs run with the
literally doing the
pros.
same test of fitness, the same
Mm-hmm.
race. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, wow, I did this with a partner. And it took me 20 minutes longer than a dude did it with heavier weights on his own.
On his own.
Right. Like
Yeah.
I split the work and I'm like, man, those guys are insane. I greatly appreciate,
Exactly.
and doing it was fun. Like, again, same thing there. Like I wouldn't travel to go do it again. Like there's no competition side of it that I like yearn for.
Yeah.
So, is this part of why the affiliates are maybe seeing reduced numbers because they had the synonymous nature of sport and the methodology? Possibly. I think largely due to that. Um, but this is obviously impacting it in a very interesting way. Now, does the next owner potentially go back to things like they were booming? What were we doing? Yes, we were losing money in one way, but was there another way to capitalize on additional, money? Now people view it as like, I wouldn't pay to be at the event as a sponsor. Like you have some random company that I've never heard of doing the official apparel, right?
Who was
Like,
it?
I don't know. It was like Breath of the Wild. No, Breath of the Wild is like a local brand. I don't even Northern Spirit. Exactly. Like it's something you've never heard of, you know.
Oh,
Eh,
yeah.
they were one of the title sponsors, right?
Oh,
Go
no
Ruck. I mean,
clue.
I think Go Ruck it makes sense, right? Like Go Ruck.
That's like that runs with the brand. Like it's like that's very much on brand, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. It's kind of man. I just miss the days when brands like Nike and Reebok were like, our shoe
Fighting
beat
over it.
yours, and then like it's like beat our shoe. We did, and like it was like that whole like
That
four
was
years.
that was a whole cool era to watch. Don't ban our shoe, beat it. Like the
Yeah,
people who came up with the marketing stuff, it was so good. It was so fun to
so
be
good, dude.
like to look back because I was still a young kid, like watching and observing that. Looking back, I'm like, man, those people they get it, and it's I hope that the sale can lead to some excitement again. In a way
Yeah,
that is not just you know whatever, like, not letting it lose its like the spark of what made it so great for me. Granted, when I did it, think of it this way: it's 2012, right? In that span, those early phases of those affiliates, right? About I think it was like three or so of them were colleges. That's what I got started with. It was college kids having, again, like we were just getting together as like a community of college kids wanting to do things that are workout that were and getting better, getting stronger, having fun
yeah.
with it, and having other people that were, maybe a little older, just like you mentioned with the wrestler, teaching me how to, perform movements as safely as possible. And man, like shout out to Baker, shout out to all the guys that are still there doing it for the CrossFit gym at Reno, man, because those
Mm,
guys they're in it. They
they're
they love
lifers,
it.
man.
They're lifers in a way of like, yes, like these things got us to like again enjoy fitness to a level that we are now lifelong advocates of having fun with it and doing things that are, I mean, they're taxing and challenging and they have a lot of fun to it. So
It's awesome.
it'll when the sale happens again, what will change? Look, cost of business goes up. People become more expensive. They are more tenured. They need raises, and you have to find ways to do that. So I don't fault an organization for trying to figure out how to charge a bit more, and also holding the owners to a higher level. But I would look at that and I'd ask the question, like, hey, you get to you get to host an L2 at your affiliate and you can get a free entry, or, we're going to pay for that credential because you've been tenured
Yeah.
for with us, if you hit a certain benchmark previously, right? But for
Yeah.
all those new people coming in, like, man, it becomes a very, we'll see what happens, man.
We'll see what happens. I think what, for example, High Rocks is doing really well is creating something super approachable, super doable, and a lot of hype. I think CrossFit needs to bring that back up because, man, I remember when CrossFit was the hype going into gyms. Fucking, I don't know. Maybe there was something had to do with the dubstep music at the time. the DJs,
Yeah.
the DJs were crushing it. I don't know. Maybe the DJs aren't crushing it right now. I don't know. But something was going on that just was. It was just like a perfect mix, and I think they just got out of that. They got to recreate that. But I want to do this. I got to jump into another call, but Marcos, dude, seriously, I think, CrossFit's been a big part of my life. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. But I think hopefully that the sale that happens,
Yeah.
they get a good suitor, they get someone great, and they bring back more of this. I definitely want people to be introduced to fitness and things like that. And if that means introduced through CrossFit, let's do it. But hey, I gotta go. Macropod. We hope you guys like the episode. Comment below. Who do you think's gonna buy CrossFit? Who do you think?
I
Hopefully
know by the time
we
we
get
release
someone.
this, who knows? It may have already been sold. So yeah, we'll,
Hmm.
we'll see where that goes. And yeah, thanks for a quick little mind dump, Seamus. We'll see
All right.
everybody in the comments.
There, guys.